Greetings and bienvenue, Dig reporting. So a lot of you are probably wondering where the hell's the Commoner Geeks video. And don't worry, they're still being made, I'm just scripting and editing them. Kinda figured before the month ends I'd mull some time over and get another video out, and talk about Fire Emblem Engage since everyone else is doing it, and hey, why not jump on the bandwagon myself? So if you can't tell from the way I'm speaking, this is obviously not scripted. I'm just doing this all in one take, though I have done multiple takes of this before. Probably like my 20th attempt so far. And this is not going to be as well edited or scripted as my other videos. I kind of figured that I would talk about the first 7 chapters to give myself a decent first impression, and I'm specifically talking about it in the context of a normal classic mode. I play classic because of the fact I've played other Fire Emblem games, and while I'm not a veteran, I'm someone who can say he's played a decent chunk of the series and knows what generally he tends to look for, and for me, classic is just what I'm used to because I'm used to units dying when they hit 0. And normal mode is simply because of the fact that if I'm going to judge a game, I'm going to judge it on its base difficulty first, and then critique it from other points later. So keep in mind, these are my first impressions. My opinion of the game may change later on, but so far, this is what I think. Fire Emblem Engage was a very weird release. When we all saw those leaks, we all thought this is going to be fake, right? Because we all looked at those character designs and we thought that this has got to be the biggest crock of shit ever. It looks like a Genshin ripoff. And it wasn't. It was real. And it also means we likely are getting a Fire Emblem 4 remake. Still gotta finish Genealogy, but damn. I'm looking forward to it if those leaks are as credible as they seem to be. But generally for me, Fire Emblem Engage was definitely an interesting franchise entry, simply because of the fact that there was going to be gacha elements in it, and I was really hoping that they did not just pull on a full-on Fire Emblem Heroes. As someone who plays the game, I was really skeptical, and hoping to God it was not just going to be a gacha pay-to-win live service game. Thankfully it's not. It's an anniversary game with mild gacha elements, though the Day 1 DLC is still something I'm groaning at. Why didn't they just add that into the base game? Those complaints aside, the main game has come out, and I've already got my fair share of opinions to say on it. For one thing, it's given me a good impression. It's pretty good so far. It's very simple, very back to basics. And I get it's an anniversary game, so obviously they're making it more in line with what some of the original games are. Like, it seems very Shadow Dragon, you know? Defeat the evil Fell Dragon, unite the kingdoms, collect the plot MacGuffins. I feel like I'm just at home playing a regular Fire Emblem game. And, you know, it's good. It's good having a more simple Fire Emblem game again. Because I think Three Houses had a problem where it definitely tried to be a bit more nuanced, but I think execution-wise it kind of fumbled the bag because it just had so many characters to juggle and multiple different routes it had to worry about. And the problem was the fan base of Three Houses. Oh god, that's a whole other can of worms you have to deal with. I think nuanced debate of that game has pretty much died the minute you see someone with the Three Houses profile picture. To not shit on Three Houses, I think it was a great game, it just didn't live up to my expectations. So I kinda had a lot going into Engage, expecting it to be really good, and thankfully there are some things that already did better off the bat. Animation-wise, the character animations and battle animations, so much more fluid. It's way better to look at because the characters actually look like they're their own unique characters and their own animations don't look generic as hell. Because when you play through Three Houses and you're playing through multiple routes, the bad graphics and the reused animations stick out so much more, and it makes it so much hard to look at. Because look, I get that the Switch is not like this huge powerhouse, and I don't expect my games to run at like 4K 60 FPS on 300 megashits, but generally, it's not a game that looks as good as it should be, right? Because the Switch has so many beautiful games. So I'm glad that Engage actually did step up in the visuals department, and I get it. When we saw those character models, we thought it was fake. I was in that boat. And I agree, it kind of looked like a Genshin ripoff, but I've grown to like these character designs as I'm seeing them in motion and seeing them in-game, and I think it fits. And I think it would probably look weird if they looked like anything else. Generally for me, I do hate, however, that there is a group of people who want to criticize the game, and I want to separate them from the others. There's like 2 camps. There's the people who are criticizing it because it's their personal preference and they don't really like the more moe anime style in Fire Emblem. I get that. But then there's also the other people who criticize the art style because it's too anime. This is one of the most bad faith criticisms I've ever goddamn seen. Fire Emblem has always been very fucking anime. Anyone with 2 eyes can look at the entire franchise and see the obvious anime inspirations. And anime is such a broad term that it's really not a great use when you use it as a fucking derogatory statement. Because even Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn are anime art styles. Like, Ike literally looks like Guts. So, can we please stop using those 2 games as a way of shitting on the art style of every other game? Like, I get that I'm weeb trash, and I'm obviously gonna like this a bit more than most people, but I feel like the appeal of Fire Emblem having different artists is something that I think people need to understand. It's not like a bad thing to have different artists, and if you don't like the art style, it's cool. Just, please, can you not criticize it from the perspective of someone who feels very insecure about playing an anime RPG? Okay, those aside, generally when it comes to the actual gameplay, it's pretty much typical Fire Emblem, but the Emblem Ring mechanic definitely feels very interesting, because I at first thought it was going to be very fanservice-y, but I'm surprised how much mechanically it works. You have different effects based on each individual emblem, and also you can only have 1 emblem ring equipped on a character at a time. Then you also have their individual character emblem rings that you can summon, which are like 40 per character. I don't envy completionists, because god, that looks like an absolute pain in the ass, especially if you double up on characters. But generally, it does things like basic stat boosts, skills, and you can inherit skills from them as well. And the best part is that any character can use them, so I kind of figured it would be like specific to each character, but no, it's actually way more free-flowing and customizable. And that's something I like. I'm kind of glad there is at least a level of customization there. It's not so overbearing. Because one of the things that I was kind of expecting was that it was going to have a more 3 houses level of customization, but no, it's actually more in line with Awakening, with character designs and character unit builds being more simple. They generally tend to only have 1 weapon rank, and it's very high off the bat, and you have second seals and master seals to reclass them into all sorts of different classes, which you can gain the skills of and slowly equip onto your characters, which, that seems pretty cool. I'm glad they went that route rather than basically just being flummoxed by a whole bunch of options that are just overwhelming and you have no idea what to do with. And the best part is, I'm kind of glad that each individual character has their own kind of defined role. Like, you have a Jagan, you have your Cain enables again, so you can kind of build your units around a more realistic expectation of what they already are, and you can kind of slightly deviate. You don't, and if you want to, you can go completely crazy. Like, you can make, I don't know, if you wanted to be, you could make your Cain and Abel's fully physical tanky units if you were crazy enough. I'm kind of glad they went back to this back-to-basics approach, because it means that we don't have to deal with as much craziness as 3 Houses did, where I felt you had to do a lot of busy work in order to really get the most out of the mechanics, as opposed to being able to naturally use it. Because, I mean, budding talents. Who the fuck use budding talents except people like me who thought that that was a unique gameplay feature which never really gets built up upon? I'm generally kind of surprised that there is no weapon durability. I feel like if you're gonna have all of these kind of customizability options and getting weapons so easily, having them not even break is kind of weird to me. It means that when you get newer weapons, it doesn't feel as cool, right? I've always kind of loved Fire Emblem's resource management aspect, so it's kind of strange that they never really even been bothered with that. It's weird to me. I get that this is something in Fates, but I feel if you're gonna have this whole open convoy, really easy to access materials, not making them at least have some weapon durability is weird, because it means I never really need to go to the blacksmith more than once, so it's kind of a pointless feature. And speaking of pointless features, the world map, the Sumnil. I think the Sumnil is one of the weirdest additions, because the game, when you complete levels, allows you to travel through the area you were just in. It kind of feels like an evolution of what happened in Path of Radiance, where you had supports and events kind of differ depending on where you were in the story at that time. So I feel like at that point you could have just had marketplaces and item shops in those individual levels that you could access in the actual levels, and then afterwards when you've defeated them you can kind of walk up to them and do what you need to do. So it kind of creates a sort of risk and reward system where you can't just immediately decide, oh hey, I'm gonna buy this immediately and then just fuck off to wherever you want. You still have to remember where you were, and you have to really be conscious of, okay, I need to grab this stuff and I can't come back immediately. I don't know, it feels weird. And I think paralogs happening so early on is also kind of strange. I feel like you should wait maybe a few chapters in before you start introducing paralogs. Because I think it's only after chapter 5 you get your first paralog? I don't know, maybe it's because I like more slower-paced games. I think having side stories come in so early just means like you're just interrupting the flow of gameplay for a while. Because technically 7 chapters is also including 2 paralogs, so it's technically 9 chapters I've played. Generally for me as well, though, characterization was definitely something I was kind of surprised by, because I was expecting this to take, again, a more Three Houses route. Can you blame me? Because, yeah, I mean, if Three Houses' a success was anything to go by, you'd expect they would just do more of the same, but no, they, like I said, repeatedly, they've gone back to basics. Every character has a very clear archetype. You have the Cain and Abels, you have the Jagan, who's the old curmudgeon and very uptight. You have the blue-haired Pegasus Knight, who's generally a bit more rambunctious and spunky. You have the himbo warrior, the docile knight, and you have the kind of innocent but cute mage. Like those are generally the kind of things you're going for, and I don't mind it. I don't mind it. Going back to simpler characters means that you don't have to worry about having to talk about a character being completely justifiable in their actions, even if they do wrongdoings. Three Houses stands. I know I'm shitting on Three Houses a lot. It's just the most recent game. I do like the game. I feel like I'm gonna make people like get the wrong impression about me. I do not hate the game. I do love it. It's just there's so many stumbles it makes. But I think when it comes to characters, my favorite especially has to be the main character, which is something I was surprised I'd even be saying. Because I feel like they're taking the criticisms of Byleth and actually addressing them, because one of my biggest problems with characters like Byleth and Corrin is that they are some of the most blandest fucking characters you've ever seen. And the worst part is, especially in the case of Byleth, they attempt to have a character arc with them becoming more and more emotional, but it doesn't even work because, first of all, they can't speak. There is literally no reason for those characters not to speak. And then it also giving them a character arc is also kind of weird, so they can't fit in as either a self-insert or their own characters. It infuriates me, because, I mean, if you have a game with full voice acting, having a silent protagonist who is still supposed to have his own form of agency and decisions matter is kind of contradictory game design. So I'm glad Alir, as a character, has his own personality. He feels things. When characters start simping for him, he says no and tells them that he is just a normal person. He insists on acting like a normal person. When his mother dies, okay, spoilers, his mother dies, but if that's even a spoiler to you, I'm surprised you're even playing a Fire Emblem game. That is a requirement for protagonists to have dead parents. You know, I mean, I expected him to have this whole kind of mopey moment, but no, he generally does feel sorry for it, and then when he talks to the queen of the neighboring nation, he generally shows some compassion and tells them that, hey, look, I don't want people to suffer the same thing I did. Like, it's generally kind of touching to know that he's a genuine character, as basic and as low as the standard may be. I'm just glad that we actually have a character who has his own personality and isn't defined by crap tons of headcanon that has to fill in the blanks. You know what I mean? And even, like, the characters themselves, like, Chloe is definitely my favorite so far. I am definitely considering supporting her. I mean, hey, if we don't have Shamir, you know, best girl from Three Houses, one of the best characters in that game, I mean, I can settle for, you know, the next best thing. I kind of love how aggressive she is as well. It's so refreshing just having a character just be so upfront about what they want from you. Yeah, though I will say, it's kind of funny how the story just has one of the main plot MacGuffins just drop from one of the characters. It's so funny, just like, oops, I dropped this important gameplay device just out of nowhere in the middle of when I'm fleeing the castle. And speaking of that hooded figure, I find it weird that I mentioned, like, the good animation, but it's so funny how the character just walks into a room, is blank, and then all of a sudden, pre-rendered cutscene, they're just standing right in front of you. Like, hello, I don't even know who you are. Though, I think it's pretty obvious, like, there's another character who appears after you save a village, who I'm guaranteeing money on that she is the hooded figure, because it's so obvious. Like, even before the weirdly drawn feet scene, like, yeah, it's so obvious what it's gonna be. And I forgot to mention in the gameplay function, I like the idea of the break mechanic. I was generally expecting it to be like this overpowered mechanic that could be abused by players, but no, they play it really safe and allow enemies to also use it as well, so it means that you can't get cocky on player phase. If you don't place your units correctly, the enemy phase can just be absolutely brutal, and I'm liking that. Just generally, I'm even surprised like how useful the emblems are from a utility standpoint as well, because like, spoilers, Micaiah is generally a much more utility focused. She just allows you to use staves on your characters, which it's really helpful if, say, you know, the main character she's with, a thief. That means you can have a thief with healing properties, which is really cool. It means that you can have your units have much more flexibility in their unit placement and what they can actually provide in your team. You can choose to have a thief with more healing function, you can choose to have a thief with even more attack power or even magic. You can do the same with maybe a Pegasus Flyer, have it specialize in healing like a Falcon Knight, or just make them go full offense, have Marth be next to them. It's fun. I'm glad that they get to do this. And plus, raising Bond is actually pretty easy, so when you get to the skill inheritance phase, it's actually pretty quick. So generally, I'm really glad that the game is just giving you all of these properties and all of these basic game mechanics out as soon as possible. So I'm really hoping that once the game goes on forward, there's more and more customization options that are available, and there's definitely more opportunities to grind, since there's already skirmishes, which is something they've very clearly taken from Sacred Stones and Awakening. And I will be honest, I was kind of expecting the emblems to be very fan-servicey and very on the nose, but no, they're their own characters, and they're allowed to, you know, strive on their own without being obnoxious. Though I will admit their bond supports feel very generic. I get that the whole reason they're like that is specifically because of the fact that they can be customizable and they can be equipped on anybody, right? So they obviously don't want to make their supports too specific, but I'm kind of glad they at least put in that basic effort. Even Sigurd, like, and Marth, characters that are generally quite simple on their own, because other characters in their games are the ones that are a bit more complicated, especially in Sigurd's case. It's kind of refreshing that they still strive just as well, despite the rest of the cast and how big it already is within only 7 chapters. There's already, 15 characters you can recruit by that time? Well, 15 characters in your army at that time. I will say as well that the voice acting is also pretty good, at least from the Japanese version which I'm playing. I do, however, feel that Fram, the Kane stand-in, she's very fucking annoying. She's the one character that irritates the crap out of me just because of how much she simps over the main character. And at least with Fram, with Kran, I don't remember his name. He's the Abel. He's more quiet, and I think I like his more pessimistic attitude with Vander and how much they kind of backtalk each other in the C support. That's kind of funny. I like having a bond support between two characters that are a bit more antsy with each other despite being close allies. You don't get that kind of support interaction unless it's a character that's already in your party then talking to a stranger, usually in most other Fire Emblem games. Oh yeah, I do generally kind of feel that if it comes to the art style, I think a lot of the character designs definitely do stand out quite well, and I think that a lot of the emblems do look good. However, looking at Edelgard, I think she's the one exception. I think they definitely could have done a better job of translating the art style, and I'm kind of at least glad that when it comes to the game, there's at least a lot more effort put into the presentation, because Three Houses had no right to look as dog shit as it did. But for me, Fire Emblem Engage so far has shown itself to be quite an interesting game, and I'm glad it's doing as well as it is, and people are talking about it as much as it is. There are more controversies to talk about it, but I figured I'd leave that for the last end of the review once I, play through the whole game and make a review of it in full. But I will make that triangle strategy video first, do not worry. Before I finish the video, I know I've been rambling on, but thank you so much to everyone who's watched my Kamen Rider Geats videos so far. I will be sure to upload as soon as possible the episode 9 review. Yes, it is episode 9 specifically. Don't worry, there's a triple episode coming right after that. And getting those last few videos well over 300, 400 views. I was not expecting that. And I can only hope you guys can help me out further on down the line. I can only improve the channel so much, so don't hesitate to like, subscribe, ring the bell, dislike the video if you can. I can't improve unless I know if you people generally want more or less of this kind of content. And if you want me to branch out more from Kamen Rider, because I'd love to talk more about Fire Emblem or other video games. Especially Metroid and Castlevania. Hunch, with Nidge, what... What the fuck am I saying? Anyway, thank you so much, guys. This is Didge, signing off.